Welcome back to the Relentless Transitions podcast, everyone. I'm Rosalind Keith, and I'm here with my lovely co-host, Teresa Carson. How are you today, Teresa?
I am doing great today. It's beautiful.
Good for you. Today, everyone, we've got kind of an exciting, but hopefully calming in another way, podcast for you. We're going to be talking about the power of silence. We've talked about moving in silence with respect to expressing your goals and dreams, and this is different. This is the power of silence, and it's actually a form of mindfulness, and everybody can use a little bit of silence these days to calm their minds and it's an interesting topic. I think a lot of people feel intimidated by the idea of silence, of sitting in silence, of practicing the pause, of mindfulness, whatever you want to call it. I think it can feel intimidating to people. What do you think about it, Teresa?
Yeah, definitely. I think that it can be a little bit intimidating because there's so much noise going on in the world today. There are so many things that are coming at us immediately as soon as we start to interact with the world every morning or every night. If you're a night person and you work at night, soon as we turn on the television or we walk out the door, we are just met with so many things. I know that for me, I have been thinking about this subject quite intensely. And we talked about it, and I'll share it with our audience about how at night, and I'm sure that there are others of you out there in our podcast world. At night, it seems like my mind has just been racing and just so full of things, and that I haven't been able to turn off, all of the things that have occurred in the world that day. And then I think sometimes at some point I'm thinking about what I'm going to do, when I wake up. So I've been trying to work on a night routine that kind of helps to quiet my mind. So I'm excited to talk about this topic today, about the power of silence, and maybe even share some tips on how to practice being silent.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's interesting. I came to really be aware and begin using silence and mindfulness or meditation, whatever you want to call it. When I was going through, major upheaval in my life, and I really did need to figure out how to quiet my head and how to sleep at night again, and learning how to be comfortable in silence really helped with all of that for me. I mean, my cortisol levels must have been through the roof. I was constant pain. I had a lot of crap going on, and it was starting to really affect me mentally and physically, I think. And when I started exploring this use of silence to help yourself calm down, um, it was uncomfortable at first. I'm not going to lie. It was uncomfortable at first. But now I love it when I am having those days where I'm having trouble making a decision or I'm stressing about something. Taking a few minutes of silent, whether it's silent reflection or whether it's connecting to the sounds of nature around me or whatever, I really noticed that my heart rate goes down.
Hmm.
My breathing becomes easier. And you know what? That's when clarity sets in as well. So,
Definitely. And you know what? And silence, I'm going to throw out there, I'm going to make this even more interesting. And I'm going to say silence can be spoken word, but it can also be written word. And by
mhm,
that, I'm tapping into the fact that now, today, so many of us who are still in the workplace are working from home. and you're communicating, through your computer, and you just constantly like typing, reading emails, and then responding or writing reports and that type of thing. And with my business, I have definitely, changed to a more digital format on most things where I used to, be traveling around and on stages. I do still speak some virtually, but I find myself communicating a lot through my computer, writing up reports, sending, suggestions, opinions, writing articles, newsletters. So that is the written word. And sometimes I just need to disconnect, where I'm not being asked a question that I have to respond to in any type of way. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Oh, for sure, for sure. I mean, it's about quieting the noise around you, and that noise can come from the emails you're responding to. It can come from the 24-hour news feed. It can come from your partner. It can come from your children. It can come from your coworkers. Like we're just there's just constant barrage of things that require our attention, and that's exhausting.
It
And
is.
so, um, you
And,
know,
and another area, sorry to jump in here, another area for me also is YouTube. If you've been following us and listening to us, I talk a lot about how I connect with people, on YouTube for, my sense of community sometimes for mentorship. Uh, Sometimes that can be overwhelming. You're
yeah,
listening to it, and it might be motivating and uplifting, but even that can sometimes become overwhelming. So you need to have like some other things. Like now, I've started to incorporate just sounds of nature, like
yeah,
something that I can listen to that doesn't really require such intense listening.
yeah,
That it can just be in the background. Or sometimes I find myself just turning everything off. While I'm at my desk, so that I'm not listening to something else in addition to trying to read and comprehend and
yeah,
respond
yeah.
to
There,
things.
there really is power in even in working in silence.
Hmm.
We tend to feel like we need constant input from something,
Hmm.
even while we're writing that report.
Hmm.
Um, but honestly, if you turn all the distractions off and actually have your office set up so that it's complete silence. Again, I'll come back to this. As you're typing that report, because you're just focusing on the report, you're going to have insights that you can add to that report. You're going to have insights that if your brain was off nattering, listening to a YouTube video, because you're famous for this too, aren't you, Teresa? Listening to a YouTube video while you're writing your book, and
Hmm.
I don't know how you do it, but you do it, and you do it quite successfully. But really, it's almost a relief when you turn some of that stuff off and just focus on that one task, isn't
Hmm.
it?
Yes,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
really is. It
Yeah.
really is.
Yeah.
So we're talking about like the power of silence. So today we're going to point out some things that are really going to help you to be empowered, but also appreciate some silence. So one of the things for me that I have found when I am just quiet or when I practice silence is that it allows me time to actually get some clarity.
Yeah.
My thinking becomes a little bit clearer. I feel like sometimes when I feel overwhelmed and it's hard to make me overwhelmed, as you can see, but when I get there, or, when I feel like I just can't make a clear decision, just kind of stopping and having some silence, even if I get up and I might be, cleaning up the house or something. I might be doing something, but I'm not talking. No one's talking to me. There's no demand other than the demand I'm placing on myself at the time. It helps me to actually get clarity. What about you, Rosalind?
Oh, for sure, for sure. I was thinking about, there'll be nights where I wake up, in the early morning hours, and my brain starts working right away. And I know that I'm tired, and I really know that I am a person. I need my 8 hours. If I don't have my 8 hours, like, I know I'm going to crash in the middle of the afternoon, and so I need my sleep. And so I start getting frustrated because I can't turn my brain off, because so the nattering's not just coming from, because it's the middle of the night, so the house is silent. It's coming from within me.
Mhm.
And so one of the things I will do is, and I've learned this. I did take a mindfulness based stress reduction course, and is to and it works for me, is to repeat some phrase over and over again. So that's all that's going on in your head. So it's for me, it's often just breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, just to remind myself to slow my breathing down, right? And just by repeating that, my breathing does become more rhythmic, and it does calm me. And eventually my head goes silent, and that nattering that's going on in my head, that to-do list that's being repeated over and over again going on in my head, actually does become silent. And So yeah, I use it that way. But I also use it for clarity. When I'm having trouble making a decision, I will just turn everything off. I will stop striving to make that decision. And I will listen to, you know, like you said, sound waves, or birds chirping. I will sit and stare out the window and watch the birds fly by for a little while, and just clear my mind. And then all of a sudden, the answer comes. It's remarkable how that happens.
So your phrase that you say to yourself is breathe in, breathe out?
Yeah, yeah,
Really?
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
That's all it
Well, you
is.
know what? So I'm gonna say that to our audience. If you have like some phrase that you say to yourself to help to calm yourself, then if you're on our YouTube channel, then put that in the comments. And otherwise, certainly share it with us through our email at relentlesstransitions@gmail.com. My phrase is great things are coming my way.
Oh,
That
lovely.
seems to like calm me. It take
Yeah,
away any like worry. Even if I'm in, it seems like when I'm in the middle of something and I can't quite figure it out, or it seems like it's not going well, I'll just start saying great things are coming my way, and
yeah,
that seems to. I'm like, okay, because I don't see it yet, but great things are coming my way. You can see that I'm definitely big on
yeah.
like affirmations and motivation. So I use it on myself, not just with my clients. And okay, so another thing that being silent does for me is it helps me to establish my plans.
Yeah,
It helps me to really actually line out, not just select a goal, but establish my plans on how I'm going to achieve the goal. And that applies to everything. It doesn't have to be, I say that business and personal life just kind of runs, parallel to one another for me. So I apply it, to I'm going grocery shopping. So I need to get XYZ, XYZ, and this I'm going to go on Tuesday, that type of thing. So it helps me to really just establish my plan on how I'm going to actually do things. What about yourself?
that's interesting, because I can see that, especially for somebody like you, who you do give yourself a constant barrage of input
Now,
while
look,
you're
y'all, she
working.
keeps saying somebody like you. She has said that one time almost too many on this podcast, but we're going to keep on going.
That I think that going from multitasking to single tasking, silence can certainly help that way, because you're silencing the other tasks while
Hmm.
you focus on creating that perfect grocery list, or that perfect, um, you know, email to somebody, and so silencing the other tasks that you have around you, that's a talent that everybody really, I think, needs to try and gain, to be able to um, silence those other tasks while you focus, because you'll find in doing so, like you said, it becomes easier to even see what you need to do in that,
Mhm,
for
mhm,
that
mhm.
thing.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And some other things that silence, strengthens in me is that it allows me to become a little bit more self-aware, just of myself, how I'm feeling, and then it also helps me to become more aware of my surroundings.
Yep.
I'm definitely in tune. I think I'm pretty mindful about what's going on around me most times. And I think that really just comes from my profession, in nursing, working in the hospital, but also I've worked out in the community where have visited people's homes. So I think that I developed the skill of just being really mindful of like people moving, around me because I was put in situations where I would go places that I was really unfamiliar with. But then, let's say business, Rosalind, you and I traveling across the world, so traveling internationally, and just traveling through many cities in the U.S. I think, and being female, I think that has put me into situations where I'm pretty in tune with what's going on around me. But, having that silence, like not getting out of your car or walking around places, especially that you're unfamiliar with like music in your ear or talking on the phone, doing things that are distracting.
Yeah.
I think that, silence can certainly help with that.
Yes, yeah, yeah. And you know, I think people actually fear silence in many, many cases. And but as you said, it's a tool that can actually, in the end, save you from making a big mistake, especially as you were saying there, to be able to just turn off the radio in your car when you're in a strange neighborhood, um, turn it off, and before you get out of your car in that parking lot or whatever, it helps you to, well, first of all, it will calm you a little bit. It'll give you an opportunity to buck yourself up with some sort of affirmation, but it also gives you an opportunity to assess the situation that you've found yourself in, right? Um,
Definitely.
you're not
Definitely.
distracted by the radio or the sound of the motor or anything. You're just there, and you know, um, it can actually alleviate maybe some of your fears too,
Hmm.
right? In that
Yeah.
moment. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
And look, I'm just throwing out these tips here. Also, silence can help to identify and actually come up with some solutions for maybe some internal issues that you may be facing. What do you think about that?
Oh, for sure, for sure. One of the things that you mentioned affirmations. One of the things that I've learned to do when I'm doubtful about the outcome of a situation and I'm silently fretting over it, I will again, try and focus on my breathing, and remind myself consistently that I can handle whatever comes from this situation. I can handle it. I can handle it, and just by going inward into your own stores of energy through your silence, through not talking about the situation to somebody, um, you actually do strengthen your ability to handle any situation, I think. So,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah.
And it helps you, when you have these issues that are going on internally, whether there is some issue going on with family or friends, or, it helps to keep you from I call it that doing that rapid fire thing, like where you want to just call somebody and go and look at what she did or he
Yeah.
said,
Yeah.
and that type of thing. If you just kind of pause,
Yeah.
and just internally reflect on the issue, silently,
Yeah.
with yourself, you might actually be able to come up with a resolution that is like totally positive and doesn't really have to involve people that don't need to be involved.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. For sure.
Another thing that um,
Can I just interrupt there? I,
yes,
I I call that practicing the pause, and it can keep you from making a lot of stupid mistakes.
mhm,
I first really noticed this when I was doing intercultural training with people. We automatically, it's human nature to rush to judgment when you see people behaving in a way that's not normal to you, to your cultural norm, and to say, well, that's wrong, they shouldn't be doing it that way, they should be doing that, and I say this to not just my intercultural training clients, but to my coaching clients as well, is take a moment, practice the pause, because you take that moment of silence, practice that pause, it does give you an opportunity to reflect before you put your foot in your mouth.
yes, I was just getting ready to say, and that 5 seconds can keep you from saying something that you really can't take back.
Exactly.
But that 5 seconds can save you from sometimes years of harm.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
exactly.
just
Exactly.
that little pause. It also can help you to really be enhance your conversation skills or your communication skills. If you are a talker, like you and I are both like talkers, and I mean we can we can talk in any circumstance, but sometimes that can lead to dominating a conversation.
Yeah.
So if you start to practice silence, then you can actually become a better listener and be, a person that more and more people are attracted to actually talk to because
Yeah.
they can get their, sentences in, they can get their thoughts in and not just, hear yours.
That's one thing actually. In coach training, you learn a lot about how to give your client the space. So you may ask them a question and they may not respond. You have to become comfortable with that silence. And that's not the easiest thing in the world to do, because our natural forms of of language, especially the English language and our Western culture, is, rapid fire, right? And so being comfortable in silence is such a powerful tool, not just for yourself, but for the person you're talking to, because it does give them the opportunity to get clarity before they respond to you. So that's a really great point, Teresa.
Awesome, awesome. Now, those are all the tips that I have for today, Rosalind. Do you have any more tips on the power of silence?
I don't. I think we've pretty much covered it all. I would just say to people that, you know, y- it's really, really amazing how you will feel once you start raising your level of comfort with silence. It's mentally refreshing, it's physically refreshing, and as Teresa, as we were just saying, it opens your mind to other possibilities and opens you to be a good listener.
hmm
Yeah.
So let's share just real quickly some tips on how to become more efficient at practicing silence. So if you're not a person who has been practicing silence, or maybe you have, but you would like to improve upon that or strengthen yourself, because I call all of these muscles. So
Yeah,
silence can be kind of like a muscle that we're working to strengthen.
exactly.
What are some things that maybe our listeners and that we can incorporate to help us with that?
I think what I recommend is, for example, you're at you're at your desk, the phone rings, you're in the middle of something, you've had a bad morning, you see a call display, a client that you don't want to deal with that day. So take, pardon me?
I'm like, don't answer. Let it go to
Yeah.
voicemail.
No, I'm more of the mind where you just take 3 deep cleansing breaths and just wipe your mind clean, bring your mind into silence, then pick up the phone. So for me, the way I've built my muscles to be comfortable in silence is actually to start with short spurts of silence and gradually grow your ability to be in silence, because like Teresa said, it's a muscle that you need to grow. And it can be very, very difficult for people to turn off the internal dialogue. It can be very difficult for people to turn off the TV, to turn off their phones, so don't try and do it all at once. You don't go to the gym and expect to lift 50 pounds on that first day in the gym, do you? Well, it's the same thing with silence, is start with small increments, maybe before you go to bed at night, taking a few minutes to just clear your brain, whether it's repeating a mantra is required, to gradually slow down the internal dialogues. But start small, and you'll find that your muscle does grow. Your ability to handle silence does grow.
Yes. Well, you actually made me think. I had a few, but you added another one to my list. And it's something that I do, at night. Maybe, because most of television is so action packed,
Yeah,
lately. So one of the things that my husband and I will do is, we'll turn it off of that, action packed show, or after that show is over with, maybe turn it to something that's just a lot calmer, like, home and garden television or the Food Network, or just turn the television off, altogether.
yeah,
That's another thing, is not sleep with the television on.
yeah,
Because believe it or not, our minds are actually processing things all of the time. So, even, in life, they say hearing is the last thing to go. So we're hearing things that are going on in our environment, even when we're asleep.
yeah,
And if you've never done it, I definitely have gone to sleep. Maybe I was watching something that was just, I don't know, just some random show. But over the course of the night, maybe something scary came on television. And next thing you know, when I wake up, my heart is beating fast and all of that stuff. And then I look at the television, and somebody's running on television, and I'm actually in the scene,
yeah,
actually with them. I've done that before. So do things like that, quiet your mind, like quiet
yeah,
your environment. At night you can do things such as lighting candles. That's one of my
yeah,
favorites. But some other things that you can do is to start embrace meditation,
yeah,
maybe some yoga. I've really gotten into sitting out on my deck. I, put some nice plants out there, bought some nice chairs, and I go and sit on the deck sometimes, just sit
yeah,
out there. Nothing going on, and like you, Rosalind, I actually put up a bird feeder, so now the birds have recognized that there is food there, so I'm watching these birds. But just simple things. It doesn't have to be anything that is costly.
yeah,
And maybe if you have a reading nook, in your home, or create one, a space to just sit. Alexa, Alexa is big,
yeah,
sitting in there and turning on that music, or just absolutely nothing, but just creating a quiet space for yourself. And as Rosalind said, start out with just 5 minutes, and then increase it, slowly. I think that can be really, really enjoyable and helpful, and help you too to move more powerfully in silence.
very good, Teresa.
All
Thanks for
right,
this.
so that's our takeaway. Start small and
Yep.
exercise that muscle of silence to increase your power. Thank you so much for joining us again today for a for another wonderful show. We would love to hear your comments. If you're on our YouTube channel, then please drop your comments in the comments below. And then otherwise, you can certainly send us an email at relentlesstransitions@gmail.com.
Thanks for listening, everyone.